result of
hot gas rising, you have cool gas falling, you have all this turbulence, you have so much action going on that it caused the sun to ring.
Wet paradises, ready for life to evolve. Then Mars's magnetic protection suddenly disappeared.
disturbance to my body. My body became completely disabled, and at that point I thought, what is it that I need to be listening to?
My aha of all aha moments.
Of gases rise and fall, churned by heat from below.
If you look at water boiling, bubbles of gas.
The solar wind blew its atmosphere into space. Then its oceans boiled away, leaving the dry, sterile,
When I went bankrupt, luckily I'd sold my way through college. I had one little tape called Are You the Cause or Are You the Effect by the Dean of Speakers, Cabot Robert. I listened to that one thing and I thought, oh my God, I did.
Are rising up because they're hot, and then they cool off, and then they sink back down. And if you look at a pot of boiling water, that's the same phenomena that's going on the sun.
We know today.
Mars' fundamental problem is that it's smaller than Earth. And because it's smaller, the internal core of Mars cooled down.
I caused myself the bankruptcy, but if I caused it, I can uncause it, I can go up by thinking up.
We are the thinker of our own thoughts.
One day, laying in bed,
But with hot plasma instead of water.
At the bottom of the convection zone, photons smash into atoms in plasma, heating them.
And solidified. And once it becomes a solid metal, there's no more magnetic field. The magnetic field shuts off, essentially, and the atmosphere...
This come to me just before I fall asleep at night.
boom, an idea came into my head.
Which story came from my childhood, which was a bad incident.
But this time the photons are absorbed by the atoms and ride the boiling current to the top. The hot atom.
Or is vulnerable to both energy and radiation from the sun and the rest of the galaxy, and probably just blew off. Whatever
My
life.
little brother went over a fence, and there was literally a dog over that fence named Hercules. Little movie trivia for you. And it bit a bat on the leg.
Photons with them.
So it's almost like this conveyor belt of material. Photons are actually hitchhiking.
On there, at least on the surface, is now completely exposed.
All rocky planets will eventually lose their magnetospheres as their cores cool and turn
So
solid.
I endeavored to make that a heroic story and sort of change the past and write it the way that I wanted it to happen. And that's where the Sandlot came from.
On the atoms that are traveling upward through this heat transfer. So it's a much easier ride in the convection layer than it is in the radiation zone.
So one way to find out if an exoplanet is alive is to discover if its magnetosphere is still active. Yet
Now this is where the fun begins. Concept. This is where you get to create an embodiment of that product, service, or business to fulfill that dream or solve that problem.
It's as if our photon were now in the hands of a single player, making a fast break.
magnetospheres are difficult to measure because they're incredibly weak.
The Earth has a magnetic field of approximately half a Gauss.
The law of attraction is a great law. And yes, by being in the right vibration and by using your mind.
In the convection layer, it's a direct path. One player can actually hold on to this basketball or photon for a lot longer in a direct path.
When you think about it, it's actually really weak. Our fridge magnets are about 100 Gauss, so they're much stronger.
Exoplanets
You can attract a lot of things. However, there's some corollary laws that you have to understand. One of which is one of the other great laws, is called the law of time, or the law of just.
By not passing, the atom takes the ball quickly at court. The photons
too far away for these weak magnetic fields to be measured directly. But there is an indirect method. When electrons...
And we know, for example, that your ideas, your thoughts are seeds. Just like a carrot seed takes about 70 days to go from seed to a carrot, your thoughts and your ideas
through the convection zone takes just a week. But in that time, it transforms the photon.
Solar wind interact with the planet's magnetosphere. They emit radio waves that beam out into space. It turns the planet into a giant radio beacon.
time. And so we've got to be patient and let the law of time, the law of gestation, work with us as we're using the law of attraction.
You have to remember that your mind.
Convection zone is around 360,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The top, just 10,000 degrees.
Astronomers such as Evgenia hope to use these signals to detect habitable exoplanets. Not only
Extremely fertile seedbed. Whatever you sow into it, that's the harvest you're eventually going to reap. If you carry hurt, offense, stuff from the past, unforgiveness, resentment.
So as the photon rises up, it cools, losing energy, changing from an energetic X-ray to visible light.
the frequency of the signal should also indicate how big the planet is.
If we're looking for...
You find those are the things that you start attracting into your life. So protect the seedbed, sow some good stuff in there, and you'll get a great harvest.
Invest in yourself.
So it starts as a high-energy X-ray at the bottom of the convection zone, moves its way up, it loses
the magnetic signature in the radio waves of a giant planet, say a hot Jupiter. We expect it to have a strong magnetic field, and therefore it would have a high frequency.
The universe knows that you're interested, and it rushes to you with an inspired thought that will change your life.
There's an old rule, it says called the 90-10 rule. It says the first 10
energy. By the time it leaves there, it's closer to the kind of light that we see, which is visible light.
At the top.
And around 100 megahertz, kind of where the limit of this radio is. However, a weaker field like Earth's requires us to go down to lower and lower frequency.
Time that you spend being absolutely clear about those things is going to save you 90% of the time in achieving your results.
And what do you think people do that have ideas?
In zone, the atom releases the photon, which shoots out as visible light. This cools the atoms, which fall...
So instead of 100 megahertz, we go down to 10 megahertz.
But looking for exoplanets at 10 megahertz presents a...
They take the time to plan. They take the concept and they ask themselves, what do I need to do from a legal perspective? What do I need to do from a financial perspective? What do I need to do from a...
To absorb more photons, heat up, and rise again. The photon is now just below the sun's
unique challenge, because the Earth's own magnetosphere generates a signal that interferes with this search.
From a marketing perspective and a management perspective, they do their research to find out whether their idea has got validity and whether that they can sell their idea to people in the marketplace.
But the churning convection zone unleashes another force. A force that powers huge storms, detonates bombs.
So to find other Earths using radio requires a dish in space.
When we want...
Then and only then should they take their time and their money and invest it in really fermenting that idea and making something out of it.
And threatens to stop light's escape.
Look for magnetospheres of extrasolar planets, we really need to get outside of the Earth-Moon system in order to get away from all the radio frequencies that are bound.
What better way? Well, in fact, what other way to get your product, service, or business to the marketplace, but to effectively communicate that idea? The trick.
Around the Earth.
With the development of new techniques and technologies, scientists are edging closer.
Is to fully immerse yourself in the creation of that concept. And then when you fully own it, then you can give it away because it's yours.
quality of your results.
In the sun's core, nuclear fusion has created a photon, a packet of light. It has battled through the radiation zone
to finding a second Earth.
I wouldn't be surprised if we have that data about an Earth and about life on it.
Life is directly proportionate to the quality of your communication. Not only your communication with other people, but most importantly, your communication with yourself.
It's important to communicate with yourself before you...
Been dragged up through the convection zone on columns of hot plasma, hurtling towards its escape.
Another star in 10 or 15 years. I'm hoping to see that soon.
Using shadows, light spectrums,
effectively communicate with others.
Someone said to me the other day, is it required that you take your children to Walmart to beat them? Some people act like that, don't they? No, I told you, get out of there. You won't.
On this million-year journey, the photon has changed from an invisible, deadly gamma ray to the kind of life-giving light we see.
Radio. Scientists have the tools to detect a planet similar to our own. But in the rush to find a planet like Earth, are we...
Get out of the parking lot, whoop you! If you don't love your children, how do you expect them to love themselves? Say encouraging, positive things to your children, to your spouse.
Finally, it has reached the surface.
Something. What if Earth is an outlier? An inexplicably lucky place on the very fringes